Thanks for joining us on Arirang News. I'm Kim Dami in Seoul. South Korea men's sabre fencing team managed to stay on top of the podium after snatching its third consecutive Olympic gold medal on Wednesday. And at least a silver medal in the badminton mixed doubles is on the way, with the semifinal set up to be an all-Korean match. South Korea's exports went up for the 10th consecutive month in July, again thanks to a solid performance from the country's semiconductors. Now, outbound shipments to China were particularly strong, also due to a strong demand for chips in the recovering IT sector. The Middle East is on edge after Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh was assassinated in a strike in Iranian city Tehran on Wednesday. Iran's Supreme Leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, has issued an order for Iran to strike Israel directly, while Israel has neither denied nor taken responsibility for the death. South Korea added its sixth gold medal at the Paris Games on Wednesday, finishing at the top of the podium in the men's team sabre fencing competition. And another podium finish can be expected in badminton mixed doubles, as an all-South Korean semifinal is set in the competition. Lee Seung-jae has more.
The goal of winning 5 gold medals in Paris has now been surpassed. The South Korean men's sabre fencing team on Wednesday continued its dominance by winning its third straight Olympic gold. The team ranked number 1 in the world of Park Sang-won, Koo Bong-gil, Oh Sang-wook, and Do Kyung-dong defeated Hungary 45-41 to place themselves at the top of the podium. 34-year-old Koo has been on all 3 gold medal winning teams, while Park and Do are competing in their first Olympic Games. Oh, who also won the men's individual sabre gold on Saturday, became the first South Korean fencer to win 2 gold medals at a single Olympic Games. Meanwhile, South Korea has secured at least a silver medal finish in the badminton mixed doubles after an all-South Korean semifinal matchup has been set. Seo Seung-jae and Chae Yu-jung advanced to the semifinals after defeating the mixed duo from Hong Kong, while Kim Won-ho and Chung Na-eun also cruised through to the semis after defeating their opponents from Malaysia. This means that South Korea will be able to finish with at least a silver medal and win its first mixed doubles medal since Lee Yong-dae and Lee Hyo-jung at the 2008 Beijing Summer Games. In the women's singles, world number 1 An Se-young cruised through to the quarterfinals after beating Chi Shu-fei of France in straight sets 2-0 in her final Group A match. An has battled through some injuries over the past year, but is now the favorite to win gold. With South Korea adding a gold medal on Wednesday, they're now in 6th place in the overall medal standings, with a total of 6 gold, 3 silver, and 3 bronze medals. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Israel's back-to-back assassinations in the Middle East have made the regional situation increasingly uncertain, with Iran officially declaring its intention to retaliate against Israel. Fears of a wider regional conflict in the Middle East are growing. Our Choi Soo-hyung reports.
The Iranian Supreme Leader has ordered a retaliation attack in Israel for the killing of a top Hamas leader in Iran's capital, Tehran. The New York Times reported on Wednesday that Ayatollah Ali Khamenei vowed revenge during an emergency national security meeting. It added that Khamenei, who's also the country's highest military commander, instructed that a defense scenario be prepared in case Israel or the U.S. attacks Iran. Ismail Haniyeh, the political chief of Hamas, was in Tehran attending the inauguration of Iran's new president. After Haniyeh's assassination on Wednesday, Khamenei stated that our guest has been martyred and that it is Iran's duty to exact a blood price. The New York Times reported that Iran is also considering simultaneous attacks from Yemen, Syria, and Iraq to maximize the impact of the retaliation. The Iranian Revolutionary Guards issued an unusual 2 statements on the same matter, condemning the assassination in the strongest words. Iran's allies and proxy groups against Israel also denounced the assassination. Ma stated that it will not stand by and watch what it called Israel's cowardly actions, while Yemen's Houthi rebels said the heinous assassination is a terrorist crime. Hezbollah also declared that the resistance of anti-Israel alliances would become even stronger. Meanwhile, on Wednesday, the U.S. White House stated it is taking special care to prevent escalation, denying that a larger conflict is imminent. The U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump have also not issued any statements on the situation so far. Son Heung-min, Arirang News.
The U.S. Federal Reserve went ahead with another key interest rate freeze for the 8th straight time on Wednesday. Fed Chair Jerome Powell hinted a widely anticipated rate cut in September is on the table. Ian Jin reports.
Ending a two-day policy meeting, the U.S. Central Bank's Federal Open Market Committee kept interest rates in the 5.25 to 5.5% range. In a press conference on Wednesday, U.S. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell said that the economy is moving closer to an appropriate point for a rate cut, which would be where the balance of risks are consistent with rising confidence on inflation, as well as maintaining a solid labor market. But he said the Fed has decided the economy was not at that point just yet. However, Powell also strongly suggested that if inflation continues to come into line with the central bank's 2% target, as it slowly has been, then a rate cut could be possible as early as the Fed's next meeting in September. He also reiterated that other factors like the political calendar would not play part in either near-term monetary policy deliberations or the central bank's longer-run forecasting work. Meanwhile, a South Korean professor of business economics cautioned that the rate cut in September was only suggested and is not certain. And even then, rate cuts are not expected to be dramatic as inflation isn't slowing down enough right now.
We have to remember that, inflation, the so-called personal consumption expenditure, price index, which is the core kind of target of a Federal Reserve, that is still, 2.6%, way above 2.0. And it doesn't coming down. So we have to remember that inflation has been coming down very rapidly from over 5% to 2.6% now. But the pace of downfall in inflation is very slow.
At a macroeconomic meeting on Thursday to assess the Fed's rate setting, South Korean Finance Minister Choi Sang-mok emphasized that uncertainties linger over when and how much the Fed would cut interest rate cuts, and added that the South Korean government would strengthen monitoring of the global financial market and devise contingency plans to better respond to uncertainties regarding interest rates in the United States and other nations. The Fed's latest freeze keeps the gap between the key rates of South Korea and the U.S. at up to 2 percentage points. Ian Jin, Arirang News.
Additional U.S. semiconductor control measures against China may prohibit South Korean chipmakers such as Samsung and SK Hynix from supplying high-bandwidth memory to Chinese companies. In a report by Bloomberg on Wednesday, the move that could be announced as early as next month would prevent chipmakers, including U.S.'s Micron, from selling chips that are essential in running complex generative AI programs. However, the report, which cited anonymous sources, says no final decision has been made so far. Now, the new measures include HBM2, HBM3, and HBM3E, as well as the equipment used to make these chips. The three companies currently dominate the global HBM market. South Korea saw another jump in its export value last month, making it the 10th increase in as many months. Now, most shipping items, including semiconductors and shipping regions such as China, saw increases. Our Park Gono has the latest figures.
South Korea's exports rose for the 10th consecutive month in July. According to the Trade Ministry's data released on Thursday, the value of exports rose by nearly 14% on year last month, reaching around $57.5 billion. That's the second largest amount for any July so far. 11 out of the 15 major exporting items, including chips, petroleum products, and machinery, have all seen increases over spanning several months, including July. The export value for semiconductors, one of the country's largest shipping items, exceeded $11 billion last month, up by more than 50% on-year. That's the fourth consecutive on-year increase of more than 50% since April, and the ninth straight month of export jumps. Automobile exports dropped by around 9% compared to the previous year, due to the car industry's summer vacation seasons, which started earlier than last year at the end of July. By destination, 8 out of the 9 major shipping regions, including China, the US, and ASEAN, saw jumps in exports. Shipments to China recorded an on-year increase of nearly 15% last month at over $11 billion, marking the largest amount in 21 months, mainly due to increases in intermediate goods like semiconductors, as the IT market has been recovering recently. That's also the 5th straight month that the country has exceeded the $10 billion mark for exports to the region. Exports to the US saw an all-time record high for any July, reaching $10.2 billion, up 9.3% on-year. Imports in July came to around $53.8 billion, up 10.5% on-year. That resulted in a trade surplus of more than $3.6 billion, making it the 14th consecutive monthly surplus recorded since June last year. And the accumulative surplus amount for this year until July reached its highest since 2018 at $26.7 billion. With robust trading last month, the Trade Ministry said it would utilize all possible resources, including financial support, in order to attain the country's goal of recording its greatest trading performance ever this year. 박건우, Arirang News.
The National Assembly is scheduled to open a plenary session on Thursday afternoon and vote on appointing 2 new Supreme Court justices. The main opposition Democratic Party of Korea is also pushing to pass an impeachment motion against the newly appointed Korea Communications Commission Chair Lee Jin-suk. The party also plans to pass 2 additional bills, one prompting a 250,000 Korean won stipend for all South Korean citizens, and the pro-labor yellow envelope bill, minimizing damage lawsuits against striking workers. In response, the ruling People Power Party is looking to launch prolonged debates or filibusters for each opposition-pushed bill. The prosecution began raiding the e-commerce platforms TMON and WeMakePrice on Thursday over delayed payments to sellers amid a liquidity crisis at their parent firm Q10. The raids targeted the headquarters of both platforms, as well as the Q10 CEO Koo Young-bae. This comes 3 days after the platforms filed for court receivership. The government estimates the overdue payment to be 210 billion Korean won, or around $153 million US, but this could escalate to 1 trillion won with future payments. Now, prosecutors have charged CEO Koo with fraud, embezzlement, and breach of trust. TMON and WeMakePrice are accused of continuing business despite knowing they couldn't make timely payments to vendors due to liquidity problems. Now on to the prolonged medical dispute here in the country. The deadline for recruiting nearly 7,700 trainee doctors for the year's second half ended with a very few applications. In fact, the big 5 hospitals here in Seoul reported a single-digit number of applicants. Son Heung-min reports.
Recruitment for trainee doctors at 126 hospitals nationwide ended on Wednesday at 5 p.m. Since Monday last week, hospitals have been recruiting for 7,645 trainee doctor positions for programs starting in September. Although the government offered disciplinary exemptions for returning junior doctors, very few have applied. These included an exemption from the rule prohibiting residents who resign during their training period from returning to the same position within a year. However, the medical community has largely ignored the recruitment efforts, with some medical professors planning to boycott training programs for junior doctors and calling for the government to scrap its medical reform plan before any negotiations. Health Minister Do Kyung said on Tuesday that the government is aware of the low application numbers, but reiterated that no additional measures would be taken to encourage returns. The number of applicants to the country's 5 major training hospitals is very low. Some have had no applicants at all, while others, such as Seoul National University Hospital and Samsung Medical Center, had only a few ahead of the deadline. Before the recruitment ended, an official from one of the hospitals said that it was uncertain if the number would even exceed single digits. Amid this situation, resident doctors who have not returned are seeking jobs at private clinics, resulting in a decrease in salaries as more people compete for limited positions. Meanwhile, the Korean Medical Association announced on Wednesday that it has formed a task force to help non-returning resident doctors who are struggling to find jobs. It will connect these residents with private clinics and create a standard contract after determining a salary range that both residents and private clinics can agree on. 신하영, Arirang News.
English Premier League football team Tottenham Hotspur have won their first match of their trip to Korea, beating Team K-League by 4-3. In the first game of the 2024 Kupang Play Series, held at Seoul World Cup Stadium on Wednesday, Spurs won 4-3 thanks to 2 goals from captain Son Heung-min. Team K-League's Stanislav Ilyichenko, who plays for FC Seoul, also scored twice to help his team respond in the second half. Despite the heat wave, about 63,000 fans enjoyed the exciting match. Spurs will play their second match in Korea against Bayern Munich on August 3rd. Solar power energy generation can be easily found everywhere in our lives, but such facilities could damage nature, may have a low efficiency, and could even increase the risk of a fire. A national research team has been developing a new solar panel module that can convert into various shapes appropriate for differing urban environments. Cha Young-kyung has the story.
Existing solar modules have various cells in one frame, which produce electric power. They have a stacked structure that encompasses cells covered by films made of expensive tempered glass and plastics. However, if a solar module is subject to partial shading, its efficiency is decreased and there is a potential fire risk. This is a reason why solar panels are erected in secluded open spaces, not in an urban environment where there is the potential for shading. In response to this, the research team developed a new technology that can form the solar panel modules into various configurations. The key to this technology is reversing the production method for solar panels that has been around for 40 years. The new modules can be bent by coating each panel with silicon, not the existing glass. Thanks to this, solar panel modules can be attached to the various shapes of downtown buildings. Electrical circuits have also been changed from the previous in-series format to a combination of connections in series and parallel. Where there is a shaded area covering the modules, the new connections help to maintain high levels of electrical output while decreasing the risk of fire.
We've developed a new type of solar panel module that can be used in various environments and in a more efficient way by utilizing panels that are broken down into smaller pieces, instead of the existing large ones.
The research team also managed to raise the energy output by 60% by attaching a shape memory alloy to the solar panels. This allows the module to optimally change its configuration by itself following the motion of the sun like a sunflower.
We have replaced the material of combustible plastic with a fire-retardant material, which allows excellent electrical insulation and durability.
The result of this research was published as a cover study in a science journal for the energy sector by the Royal Society of Chemistry. The research team plans to utilize the new convertible solar panel modules into a wider range through further research. Cha Young-kyung, Arirang News.
Let's take a look at the latest news in the world now. We begin today in the UK, where thousands of protesters gathered in London on Wednesday for the second night of demonstrations following the deaths of 3 young girls in a knife attack at a dance class in Southport on Monday. Protesters clashed with police near Downing Street and threw flares and smoke canisters towards number 10 before riot police formed a barrier. Dozens were arrested at the scene. The second night of protests follows Tuesday's outbreak of violent demonstrations in Southport, a seaside town in the northwest where the killings took place. Tuesday's protest began as a peaceful vigil with over 1,000 people before a group began to gather near a mosque 2 streets away from the murder scene after hearing rumors that the 17-year-old suspect was an asylum seeker. The protesters, some believed to be far-right English Defence League supporters, attacked the mosque and police in riot gear with bricks from garden walls, bottles and fireworks, injuring 53 police officers and leaving the mosque damaged. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer said they had insulted the community and would feel the full force of the law. Guinea's criminal court on Wednesday sentenced former junta leader Moussa Dadis Camara to 20 years in prison after finding him guilty of crimes against humanity for the deaths of at least 157 people and rape of dozens of women in the country's 2009 stadium massacre. The Guinea court convicted Camara and 7 other high-ranking officials after a prolonged trial. 4 others were acquitted. Now 60-year-old Camara seized power over the country in a military coup d'etat in December 2008, following the death of a longtime president, Lansana Conté. A year later, in September 2009, mass protests took place against his regime in Guinea's capital, Conakry, demanding Camara to step down. Witnesses from 2009 said that demonstrators gathered at the stadium to protest when Camara's soldiers opened fire, shooting, crushing and knifing some 160 people to death, while some of the women were gang raped by uniformed men over several days. A civil society activist, Mamadou Kali Diallo, said that the people of Guinea hope that this will be a good beginning for the fight against judicial impunity in governance in the Republic of Guinea. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro says that his Socialist Party is prepared to present all vote tallies from Sunday's election. Maduro has also said that he requested the country's top court to ensure all other political parties in Venezuela do the same. Maduro also claimed that the attorney's office should call all political parties and their candidates to testify in an investigation related to alleged election interference, such as cyber attacks, attacks on polling stations, and the offices of the National Electoral Council. Maduro's re-election has been under scrutiny for lack of transparency by the international community, including the majority of Latin American countries, to the extent of hindering their diplomatic ties. Nicolas Maduro, who has ruled Venezuela for a quarter century, claimed he'd won a third term with 51% of the vote on Sunday, while independent exit polls showed a big opposition win. Former BBC TV news presenter Hugh Edwards pleaded guilty on Wednesday to 3 counts of making indecent pictures of children. London's Westminster Magistrates Court was told that the 62-year-old Edwards, who had been BBC's highest-paid top news anchor for decades, was sent 377 sexual images, of which 41 were indecent images of children, through mobile messenger WhatsApp between December 2020 and August 2021 by an individual the police said was a convicted paedophile. Edwards is scheduled to be sentenced on September 16th. He resigned from the BBC in April. Kim Seong, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. Korea is enduring searing heat with heat wave warnings in most places. The government has raised the heat wave crisis alert level to its highest serious level as of yesterday. Meanwhile, Gangneung had the warmest temperatures of the season on Wednesday and could see highs topping out at 36 degrees Celsius this afternoon. And today should be as bright as Wednesday, except in northern parts of the country with more cloud coverage and a chance of showers. 5 to 10 millimeters of rain is in the forecast, so have a small umbrella handy. Most of Korea is having a tropical night with overnight temperatures exceeding 25 degrees Celsius, but feeling closer to 30 degrees. It looks to be as hot as yesterday. Seoul gets up to 33 degrees, Gyeongju topping out at 37 degrees with very strong UV rays. Certain parts of the country could see on and off showers over the next 2 days, while sweltering heat continues day and night for the time being. With that in mind, let's take a look at the international weather conditions.
That's all we have at this hour. Arirang News will be back at 2 p.m. Korea time. Thanks for watching.